Please leave the flowers at the front desk, the CEO said without looking up. No one in the lobby realized those words were about to reopen a promise buried 3 years deep, and before this day ended, an entire glass tower would fall into the kind of silence money could never buy. The lobby of Whitmore Living headquarters shimmered beneath the late morning sun, lights spilling through 40-foot windows and stretching across polished marble like sheets of gold. Employees moved with the rhythm of success, coffee cups in hand, heels clicking, badges flashing. In the middle of all that motion stood Ethan Walker with a simple brown delivery box tucked carefully beneath his arm. He was not dressed like the people who belonged there. His denim jacket had a faded cuff. His boots carried traces of soil from the greenhouse behind his flower shop. A small ink stain marked the edge of the receipt tucked into his pocket. Still, he stood straight, quiet, steady, the kind of man who had learned that dignity did not need expensive clothes. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked politely. Ethan offered a gentle smile. "No, ma'am. Just a delivery for Ms. Claire Whitmore." The receptionist glanced at the card. White roses. 6 of them. Nothing extravagant. No ribbon. No logo. Just fresh petals wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. "I'll call upstairs." A minute later, the elevator doors opened. Claire Whitmore stepped into the lobby with the calm precision of someone used to being watched. Navy suit. Silver watch. Hair pinned neatly back. At 35, she had built one of the fastest-growing lifestyle companies in the country, but success had left little room for softness. Her eyes moved to Ethan, then to the flowers. "I didn't order those," she said. Her voice was not cruel, just tired. Ethan nodded once. "I know." Claire paused. "Then this is some kind of promotion?" "No, fundraiser." "No, ma'am." She folded her arms gently. "I'm sorry, but I don't accept personal deliveries." The lobby grew quieter. Ethan looked down at the flowers for a moment. White roses. Lily's choice. His daughter had picked them before school that morning. She said they looked like hope. "Understood," he said softly. He turned as if to leave, then stopped. "There's a card inside. If you ever have a moment, please read it." Claire hesitated. "Only for a second. Leave it with reception." Ethan nodded again. No argument. No disappointment on his face. Just grace. He placed the flowers on the desk and walked toward the revolving doors. Outside, autumn wind brushed through the avenue. Across the street, his old pickup waited beside a parking meter nearly out of time. He climbed in slowly and rested his hands on the wheel. Back inside, Claire headed for the elevator. She almost forgot the flowers completely. But as the doors closed, something caught her eye. A small envelope tucked beneath the stems. Plain cream paper. No company logo. Just 6 handwritten words in careful ink. "For the woman who once saved us." The pickup rattled softly as Ethan pulled away from downtown, the glass towers shrinking in his rearview mirror until they became silver lines against the autumn sky. He did not look back. He never had much practice expecting people to choose him, and life had taught him that kindness was not a contract. It was simply something you gave because the world needed more of it. 20 minutes later, he turned onto Willow Creek Road, where maple leaves had begun to gather along the shoulders like little fires of red and gold. The town grew quieter here. Fewer cars, older porches, flower boxes hanging from weathered windows. At the edge of the street sat Walker Bloom's, a small flower shop with peeling white paint and a wooden sign that had faded under years of rain and summer heat. Ethan stepped inside carrying the empty delivery box. The scent met him first. Roses, lavender, fresh eucalyptus, the soft perfume of ordinary beauty. "Daddy." Lily appeared from behind the counter wearing an oversized apron that nearly touched her sneakers. Her blonde ponytail had come loose again. Did she like them? Ethan set the box down carefully. "I do not know yet." Lily tilted her head. "Did she smile?" He paused. "Only a second. Not today." Lily looked down at the little white ribbon she had been tying around mason jars. "Maybe tomorrow then." Ethan smiled softly. Children had a way of believing in second chances before adults remembered how. The bell over the door jingled as Mrs. Delaney from the bakery next door stepped in carrying 2 paper bags. "Brought cinnamon rolls," she announced proudly. "And do not argue because I already decided you need them." Ethan laughed quietly. "You spoil us." "Someone has to." She lowered her voice as Lily disappeared toward the back room. "How is business?" Ethan glanced at the order board. 3 deliveries. 1 wedding cancellation. 2 unpaid invoices pinned beneath a magnet shaped like a sunflower. Still standing. Mrs. Delaney knew that answer meant things were harder than he admitted. The greenhouse behind the shop needed repairs before winter. The heater had started making strange sounds last week, and the bank letter sitting unopened in his truck was still waiting. But Ethan never complained. Not when Lily could hear. That evening the shop lights dimmed early. Rain tapped softly against the windows while father and daughter sat upstairs in their small apartment above the store. The kitchen smelled of tomato soup and grilled cheese. Lily colored at the table while Ethan repaired a loose picture frame. It held the last family photo they had taken before Emily passed away. Lily looked up suddenly. "Do you think Mom would have liked the roses?" Ethan rested his hand against the frame. The room became quiet. Warm. Gentle. "She would have loved them," he said softly. "Your mom believed flowers carried pieces of people." Lily smiled. "Then maybe those roses carried our thank you." Ethan nodded, but said nothing more. Outside, rain continued falling over Willow Creek. Across town, high above the city lights, a woman in a corner office stood alone beside 6 white roses and an unopened card. Claire Whitmore had faced investors worth billions, reporters hungry for headlines, and boardrooms filled with people who smiled while preparing to disagree with her. None of them had unsettled her the way 6 white roses now resting on her desk did. The office overlooking downtown Chicago was quiet except for the faint hum of the city below and the ticking of the antique clock her father once kept in his study. The flowers sat beside her laptop like they belonged there, simple and almost out of place among glass awards and quarterly reports. Claire reached for the envelope again. The paper felt ordinary. The words were not. "For the woman who once saved us." Her fingers tightened slightly. "Claire." Her assistant Megan stepped into the office carrying a tablet. "The Denver call starts in 15 minutes. Claire did not look up immediately. "Move it to tomorrow." Megan blinked. "Tomorrow. Please." It was the first meeting Claire had postponed in nearly 8 months. Megan quietly nodded and left. The room returned to silence. Claire opened the card fully this time. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, as though every word had been placed with respect. "Thank you for paying for Emily Walker's medication at St. and Medical Center 3 years ago. You never stayed long enough to know what it meant. My wife passed later that winter, but because of you she spent Christmas at home with our daughter. We never forgot. Respectfully, Ethan Walker." Claire stopped breathing for a moment. Not from shock. From memory. Snow outside hospital windows. Coffee gone cold in her hand. A volunteer badge clipped to her coat because she had wanted one evening where nobody called her chief executive officer. She remembered the nurse quietly mentioning a young mother whose insurance had failed. A woman trying to smile for her little girl despite exhaustion in her eyes. Emily. The name returned like music heard from another room. Claire sat slowly. She remembered blonde hair tucked beneath a knit cap. Gentle eyes. A child holding paper flowers made from napkins. She had paid the bill anonymously and left before sunrise because kindness had always felt easier when no one knew. Yet someone had remembered. Across the city rain began again, soft against the windows of the tower. Claire stood and walked toward the glass overlooking the streets below. Thousands of people moved through crosswalks carrying umbrellas and briefcases. Somewhere among them was a man who had walked into her building not asking for anything. Not money. Not attention. Only gratitude. Her phone buzzed. Board message. Investor update. Market numbers. She ignored them all. Instead, she looked back at the flowers. White roses. Fresh stems. One petal had fallen onto her desk. She picked it up carefully. Grace, her mother used to say, is when someone gives you something they did not owe. Claire had spent years building a company around beautiful homes and meaningful spaces. Yet standing there, she realized something unsettling. The warmest room she had entered in years might belong to a widowed florist she had turned away before even hearing his story. Claire left the office before sunrise the next morning, something she had not done for years unless it involved airports or investors. Chicago still wore the pale blue quiet that came before the city fully woke. Streetlights reflected off damp pavement, and coffee shops had only just unlocked their doors. On the passenger seat beside her rested the 6 white roses. She had taken them home the night before and placed them in water. Somehow it had felt wrong to leave them beneath fluorescent office lights. The address from the card sat folded inside her coat pocket. Willow Creek Road. Walker Blooms. 28 miles from the tower where most people believed her life existed. By 8:15, she turned onto the small street lined with brick storefronts and maple trees shedding their last autumn leaves. The flower shop appeared exactly as she had imagined and nothing like the world she lived in. White paint worn by time. Wooden benches outside. Small pumpkins near the entrance. A chalkboard sign read "Fresh Dahlias Today" in uneven handwriting that looked almost cheerful. Claire stayed inside the car for another minute. She had walked into television studios without fear. She had negotiated million-dollar contracts with a calm smile. Yet now her hands felt strangely uncertain. The bell above the shop door rang softly when she entered. Warm air wrapped around her immediately. Lavender. Cedar. Fresh-cut stems. It smelled less like business and more like memory. "Welcome to Walker Bloom's," a small voice said. Claire looked down. Lily stood behind the counter wearing the same oversized apron, this time decorated, with tiny paper flowers clipped near the pocket. Her blue eyes widened. "You are the flower lady." Claire blinked. "Flower lady?" Lily nodded seriously. "Daddy took flowers to see you yesterday." Claire smiled before she realized she was doing it. "I suppose that makes sense." Lily leaned forward. "Did you like them?" Claire looked at the roses in her hands. "Very much." Footsteps sounded from the greenhouse behind the shop. Ethan appeared carrying a wooden crate filled with mums and stopped the moment he saw her. Silence settled between them. Not awkward, just unexpected. He set the crate down carefully. "Ms. Whitmore." Claire held the flowers a little tighter. "Claire is fine." Ethan nodded once. "Claire." Lily looked between them with the concentration of someone solving an important mystery. "Daddy." She came back. Ethan gave a quiet smile. "Looks like she did." Morning light slipped through the front windows and landed across the rows of flowers. Dust floated in the air like tiny sparks. Claire suddenly understood why the place felt different. Nothing here rushed. Nothing demanded. The world outside chased numbers and schedules and titles. This place simply breathed. She reached into her pocket and removed the card. "I read it last night." Ethan lowered his eyes briefly. "You did not have to come." "I know." Her voice softened. "I wanted to." Ethan looked at her then. Really looked. Not at the suit or the watch or the woman the city knew. Just at her. Somewhere behind the counter, Lily quietly placed a sunflower into an empty vase and whispered to herself. "Mom used to say flowers know when people need second chances." Claire stayed longer than she planned. 10 minutes became 30, then nearly an hour without either of them noticing. Outside, Willow Creek moved at its usual pace. A mail truck rolled past. Wind carried leaves across the sidewalk. Somewhere down the block, a church bell marked 9 o'clock. Inside the flower shop, time felt softer. Lily sat at a small table near the front window coloring new labels for jars, while Ethan trimmed stems behind the counter with quiet focus. Claire watched him for a moment. He worked the way some people prayed. No rush. No wasted motion. Just care. "You still remember her," Claire said gently. Ethan paused. He knew who she meant. Every day, he placed a white carnation into water. Emily loved mornings. She said they were proof life keeps trying. Claire lowered her eyes. The words settled somewhere deeper than she expected. "I am sorry I never came back," she said quietly. Ethan looked up. "You did more than enough." "It never felt that way." Lily glanced over. "Mom used to say helping is not small just because nobody claps." Ethan smiled faintly. "She did say that." Claire walked slowly through the shop. There were framed photographs tucked between shelves. Lily holding sunflowers taller than herself. Ethan repairing greenhouse windows. One picture caught her attention. Emily standing in front of the shop under string lights, her hand resting over Lily's shoulder. She looked tired but happy. Alive in the kind of way that comes from loving people more than comfort. Claire touched the edge of the frame lightly. She was beautiful. Ethan nodded. Yes. No long speech. No dramatic sadness. Just truth. The bell above the door rang, and Mrs. Delaney stepped in carrying another paper bag. She stopped when she saw Claire. Recognition flashed immediately. "Well now," she said with a smile. "You must be the woman from the flowers." Claire almost laughed. "I suppose I am becoming famous for that." Mrs. Delaney handed the bag to Lily. "Cinnamon muffins. Fresh this morning." Lily beamed. "Thank you." Mrs. Delaney leaned closer to Claire. "He never talks about himself much. But that man over there rebuilt this whole place after the storm 2 winters ago with his own hands." Ethan looked mildly embarrassed. "Mrs. Delaney." What? It is true. Claire turned toward the greenhouse, visible through the back doors. The wooden beams were weathered. One corner of the roof had been patched with different panels. Quiet signs of effort. Quiet signs of surviving. Her phone vibrated again. 5 missed calls. 2 bored messages. An email marked urgent. For the first time in years, she placed the phone face down without reading any of them. Lily suddenly appeared beside her holding a small clay pot. Inside grew a tiny white daisy. "This one is for you," she said. Claire blinked. "For me?" Lily nodded seriously. "It is not perfect yet. Daddy says flowers still count while they are growing." Claire accepted the pot carefully. The little bloom leaned slightly toward the window light. Something inside her moved then. Small. Unexpected. Like a room opening after being closed for too long. Across the shop, Ethan watched quietly while autumn sunlight settled around them. And for the first time since Emily had gone, the place felt as if it had made space for someone new. Claire returned 3 days later carrying no assistants, no schedule binder, and no polished version of herself. The city still expected its chief executive officer to be in meetings by 8 in the morning, but instead she parked beside Ethan's old pickup while cold sunlight stretched across Willow Creek Road. In the passenger seat sat the little daisy Lily had given her. She had kept it on her kitchen window and watered it every evening. The bell over the shop door rang, and Lily looked up from arranging tiny pumpkins between vases. Her face brightened immediately. "You came back again." Claire smiled. "I did. That means you like us." Ethan, working near the back table with bundles of eucalyptus, tried not to laugh. "Lily." "What?" "It is true." Claire crouched slightly beside her. "I do like you." Lily seemed satisfied with that answer. Ethan walked over, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Morning. Morning." The word felt strangely warm between them. Not formal anymore. Not distant. Just honest. Claire glanced toward the greenhouse. "Would it be all right if I helped today?" Ethan looked surprised. "Help? I know almost nothing about flowers, which probably means I need lessons." Lily clapped once. "Daddy teaches good." The greenhouse sat behind the shop beneath clear panels that softened the sunlight into gold. Rows of mums, roses, and winter seedlings stretched beneath hanging baskets. The air carried earth, cedar, and growing things. Claire removed her coat and rolled up her sleeves. Ethan handed her gardening gloves. "You do not have to do this." She slipped them on. "Maybe I do." For the next hour they worked quietly. Ethan showed her how to trim dead leaves without harming new growth. Lily moved between them carrying watering cans much too proudly for someone weighing barely 60 pounds. "Flowers are funny," Lily announced. "They look weak but survive storms." Claire glanced at Ethan. He was fixing a support wire along one of the beams where the greenhouse roof had been repaired. She suddenly thought Lily was talking about him. Around noon, they sat outside on overturned wooden crates eating grilled cheese sandwiches Mrs. Delaney had delivered. Wind carried fallen leaves through the alley behind the bakery. Claire laughed when Lily tried convincing a squirrel to accept half her crust. Ethan watched from beside them, quiet as always. "You smile more here," he said suddenly. Claire turned toward him. "Do I?" He nodded once. "You do." She looked down at the sandwich in her hands. No investor had ever noticed something that small. No board member had cared enough to say it. "Maybe this place remembers something I forgot," she said softly. Ethan did not answer right away. The silence stretched gently. Then he said, "Peace usually waits where people stop performing." Claire felt those words settle inside her like seeds finding soil. Her phone buzzed again in her coat pocket. Meetings. Market reports. Messages marked urgent. She ignored everyone. Because for the first time in years, she was not inside a glass tower proving her value. She was sitting beside a widowed florist and his daughter under an autumn sky, holding a paper cup of cider while a little girl taught squirrels about generosity, and somehow it felt more important than anything waiting downtown. The photograph appeared on a Thursday afternoon. Claire did not even know it existed until Megan entered her office holding a tablet with the careful expression people used when carrying bad news. The image filled the screen. Claire standing outside Walker Blooms with dirt on her gloves. Ethan beside her holding a tray of seedlings. Lily in the middle laughing at something beyond the frame. The headline beneath it read Chicago CEO trades boardroom for small-town florist. Claire looked at it quietly. "How many outlets picked it up?" she asked. Megan hesitated. 8 so far. Maybe more by tonight. Another message appeared. Investor concerns. Public image questions. Speculation. Rumors. Claire placed the tablet down. Across the office, the little Daisy from Lily sat beside the window, leaning toward the afternoon sun. She had moved it there herself every morning. "Cancel my evening interviews," she said softly. Megan stared. "All of them?" "Yes." Downtown, the city kept moving. Markets opened and closed. Meetings filled calendars. But in Willow Creek, Ethan was lifting crates into the greenhouse when Mrs. Delaney hurried across the street carrying a folded newspaper. "You need to see this." Ethan wiped his hands and took it. The article covered half the page. Not cruel. Not yet. But curious in the way attention often became. He read silently while Lily arranged orange mums near the front window. "Daddy." He folded the paper. "It is nothing." Mrs. Delaney crossed her arms. "It is not nothing." Reporters came by earlier asking questions. Ethan grew still. The greenhouse heater clicked somewhere behind him. "What kind of questions?" "About her. About you." Ethan looked toward the staircase leading to the apartment above the shop. His eyes lingered there a second longer than usual. That evening, Claire arrived just before sunset carrying 2 cups of cider. She noticed immediately that something felt different. Ethan stood outside repairing a loose board near the side fence. Lily sat on the porch steps, unusually quiet. "Did I come at a bad time?" Claire asked. Ethan set the hammer down gently. "No." But the word carried weight now. Lily looked up. "People came today." Claire felt her chest tighten. "People? Camera people." Ethan stepped closer. "They asked questions." Claire lowered her eyes. "I am sorry. You do not need to apologize." "Maybe I do." Wind moved through the maple trees overhead. Leaves drifted across the sidewalk like pieces of amber. Claire held out 1 cup of cider toward him. Ethan accepted it after a pause. "I never meant to bring noise here," she said quietly. "This place survived because it stayed small." Ethan looked toward the flower shop. Windows glowing warm against the coming dusk. "Emily used to say peace is fragile." His voice softened. "I think she was right." Lily stood slowly and walked between them. In her hands was the little clay pot that once held Claire's daisy. The flower had grown taller now. "I moved it to a bigger one," she said proudly. Then her smile faded a little. "Please do not stop coming." Silence settled around them. Claire looked at Ethan. He did not speak. But for the first time since she met him, she saw fear there. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing the quiet life he had spent years rebuilding. Claire did not return the next day, or the day after. Willow Creek settled back into its ordinary rhythm. But something had changed inside the flower shop. Lily still arranged jars by the window. Ethan still opened at 7 and watered the greenhouse before breakfast. Yet the quiet felt heavier now, like a song missing one note. On the third evening, rain tapped softly against the front windows while Ethan sat alone upstairs at the kitchen table. A sheet of cream paper rested before him. He had started writing twice already. Both versions sat crumpled beside an empty coffee mug. Down the hall, Lily slept with the little daisy on her windowsill, its leaves reaching toward the moonlight. Ethan picked up his pen again. "Dear Claire." He stopped. The words did not come easily. He was not writing to thank her this time. Gratitude had already been given. This letter felt different. Slower. Sadder. He tried again. "You brought kindness back into this house." Lily laughs more now. "I had forgotten what that sounded like every day." The rain grew stronger outside. Ethan looked toward Emily's photograph above the shelf. The smile in the frame never changed. Some nights that helped. Some nights it hurt. He lowered his eyes to the paper. "I think you should stop coming. Not because you did anything wrong. Because your world is large and bright and full of people watching. Ours survived by staying small. I do not want Lily learning that peace always loses to attention." His hand paused. The sentence sat there quietly. Honest. Painful. True. Across the city, Claire stood alone inside her apartment, overlooking the river. The little daisy from Lily had opened another bloom. Her phone buzzed continuously on the counter. Interviews. Damage control meetings. Investor calls. She ignored everyone. Instead, she looked at the photograph she had taken secretly last week. Ethan repairing greenhouse glass while Lily held screws in her tiny hands like treasures. It was blurry. Imperfect. Somehow it felt more valuable than the framed awards filling her shelves. The next morning, Mrs. Delaney found Ethan sealing the envelope behind the shop. "You look like a man mailing goodbye." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Maybe I am." She folded her arms. "Careful with that." "With what?" "Quiet people." He looked up. They leave before anyone notices they mattered. Ethan said nothing. By noon, the letter sat addressed on the counter beside the register. Lily wandered over after school and read the name written across the front. Claire Whitmore. She looked at her father. Is that another thank you? Ethan knelt beside her. No, sweetheart. Then what is it? He hesitated. A letter about letting go. Lily held the little clay pot against her chest. The daisy had grown taller now, stronger. She looked down at it for a long moment. Flowers do not leave when storms come, she whispered softly. Ethan felt the words land somewhere deep inside him. Before he could answer, the bell above the shop door rang. He turned toward the entrance. Claire stood there breathless from the cold, rain still clinging to her coat, her eyes fixed not on him but on the envelope resting between them. Rainwater still glistened on Claire's coat as she stepped fully into the shop. The bell above the door swayed once and settled. No one moved for a moment. Ethan stood beside the counter with the letter still in his hand. Lily held the daisy pod against her sweater like something fragile and important. Claire looked at the envelope again. Do not mail it. Her voice was soft but steady. Ethan lowered his eyes. Claire. She shook her head gently. Please. Outside, the rain continued falling over Willow Creek, tapping against the windows in quiet rhythms. Inside the flower shop, the world seemed to hold its breath. Claire stepped closer. I spent my whole life building places people wanted to live in, she said. Beautiful kitchens, bright rooms, perfect spaces. She looked around at the shop, the worn shelves, the chalkboard sign, the jars tied with ribbon Lily had made herself. Then I came here and realized I had never actually learned what home felt like. Ethan said nothing. His fingers rested against the edge of the envelope. Claire took another step. You think I belong to a different world. Her eyes glistened now, but her smile remained calm. Maybe I do. But that world has never waited for me when I was tired. It never saved me a seat. It never handed me a flower in a clay pot and asked nothing back. Lily quietly walked toward her and slipped the daisy into Claire's hands. We saved your place, she whispered. Ethan looked at his daughter, then at Claire. The room felt suddenly smaller and infinitely warmer. Claire held the little flower against her chest. I do not want noise either, she said softly. I do not want headlines. I do not want photographs. Her eyes met Ethan's. I just do not want to lose this. Silence settled between them, not empty silence. The kind built from truth. Ethan slowly looked down at the letter. Then, without a word, he opened the drawer beneath the register and placed it inside. Lily smiled first. Small, bright, certain. Mrs. Delaney appeared at the door carrying another paper bag and immediately stopped. Oh, she said quietly. I think I walked into something important. Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. Evening arrived gently over Willow Creek. The rain ended. Golden light slipped through the front windows and touched every vase in the shop. Ethan locked the door early that night. Upstairs, 3 mugs sat on the kitchen table beside cinnamon rolls and tomato soup. Claire laughed when Lily insisted the daisy needed its own seat by the window. The apartment glowed with old lamps and soft shadows. Emily's photograph remained on the shelf, watching over the room. Ethan looked at it once before sitting down. Thank you, he whispered so quietly only he could hear. Across the table, Claire looked up as if she had felt something move in. The air outside the world kept rushing. Markets opened. Cameras searched. Headlines waited. But inside that little apartment above a flower shop, 3 people shared soup beneath warm light, while a single white bloom leaned toward the window, and somewhere in the stillness, silence finally became peace.